Welcome to the CSBP Fertilisers Grow Better podcast, sharing knowledge with growers on leading crop nutrition, sustainable agriculture and other issues impacting the agricultural industry.
G'day everyone and welcome to another episode of the CSBP Grow Better podcast. My name's Gray Johnston and I'm very excited today to be joined by Rick McDonald, Wagin Woolorama legend, Chloe Blight, Rural Ambassador for the Wagin Woolorama, and Carmen, Sponsorship Coordinator for the Wagin Woolorama. And guess what? Today we're talking about the Wagin Woolorama and its 50th anniversary. Welcome all.
Thank you.
So Rick, I guess if we start with you, can you introduce yourselves to our listenership and what's your involvement with Woolorama?
Well, my involvement goes right back, obviously, to the very early days, well over 50 years actually, but I'm going to blame my mother-in-law. Malcolm, Edward and myself married two daughters of the Murdoch family. And when we first moved onto the farm, she said, well, you've got to start joining in some community activities, which in Malcolm's case was Lions and my case was Apex. At the same time, she said, you should go to the Agricultural Society. They need people. So we went. Well, as we returned, sitting around the morning tea table in the kitchen at Belmont Park, she said, well, what was it like? And I said, bloody terrible. Terrible. They spent the whole meeting arguing about how much they should hire the crockery out for and to who. And I thought, and so her response was, well, do you think they need to change? And my response and Malcolm's response was, of course they need to change, otherwise they're dead in the water. They're screwed. You know, it's not going to happen for more than a couple of years. I mean, they might have been going for 70 now, but not much longer. Mm-hmm. So she immediately turned around and said, well, if you think it needs to change, there's only one way to make that happen. Get in and do it.
And the rest is history?
And the rest is history, basically. I mean, Malcolm and I probably spent the next 6 or 8 months having morning and afternoon tea in the paddock, talking about what we could do, what we could look at doing to recreate the Wagin show, because it was a Wagin show in those days. And the first thing we recognised that we needed to make it a learning and having fun environment and really concentrate on those elements. So given that sheep and wool were a big part of the wheat belt in those days, or the Great Southern area in those days, and they still are, of course, but we very quickly figured out that to try and get our crowd beyond the 12 to 1,500 people that was currently attracting, we were sandwiched between Narrogin and Katanning. And that was driven by the Showmers Association, who basically said we want to drive from A to B to C to D as we head down the Great Southern. So we said, no, blow that, let's get right out of the picture. And we decided amongst ourselves, privately, that March was a good time to do it. So we sat down, we worked it out and did a lot of work, and we actually had a bit of a quiet chat to some of the committee people that we thought might have been on side, and then finally took it to an AGM to make a big change to Wagin Show, which had become Woolorama by then because we ran a competition for the name. Not only that, of course, the other reason was that for farmers running it, it's a busy time of the year. You know, March is full-on blowflies, shearing, crutching, the works, everything's happening in spring. Yep. Everything's happening in spring. So March became the target. It was a dead quiet time on the farm. It was in between seeding and harvest and seeding. It was an easy time to run a show. So we took it to the AGM. 36 people might have attended, 12 voted. 6 for, 6 against.
And how did you break the deadlock?
Well, the chairman has a casting vote, and the chairman was the current president, Eric Farrow, at the time. Now, typically a president should always cast a casting vote for the status quo. But he in his wisdom decided that change was the go, and he voted for change. Wow. Now, we tell the story, there was actually a fist fight on the lawn outside the CWA hall after this, because the meeting...
Tempers were running hot.
Tempers were running hot. But in a nutshell, year one, we doubled the crowd to 3,000. And everyone said it won't happen a second time. Year two, we went to 5,500 or thereabouts. It won't happen a third time. When it happened a third time, they said, what a bloody great idea we had. Yeah. What can we do to help? But realistically, the structure that we put in place at that point in time brought the whole community into Woolorama. We recognised that we couldn't do it all ourselves, so we needed to get the Lions Club ran the bar, the Apex Club ran the gates, the Rotary Club ran the ground control. CWA did the catering, another couple of groups, P&C did some catering. So all the little community groups that needed fundraising events were targeted and aimed and brought into Woolorama to help this process along.
And who was left then to attend the Woolorama? Like, where are all these people coming from?
All over the whole of Western Australia. So we expanded our audience by taking it away from that sort of sandwich between Narrogin and Katanning. We expanded our audience to the whole of the Great Southern and the Wheat Belt.
And so then, I guess, Carmen, a good opportunity to bring you in. You're currently on the committee for the organising the event and the sponsorship coordinator. Does that sound very familiar to the experience you're having today?
Yeah, so I'm not actually part of the farming community, but I had the pleasure of growing up in Wagin, went to Wagin District High School. So all my schooling career, the highlight was in March. We were at the swimming carnival usually, waiting for the show rides to turn up and everything, sitting there at the swimming pool going, oh, what ride's going to be here this year? And because we always got the day off on the Friday because it was pupil-free day. And yeah, even though I'm not part of the farming community, I had parents up there working the P&C and the catering. I had my auntie Fiona, who's actually the vice president now. She was Miss Woolorama, which is what the Rural Ambassador is now. So we had to fundraise for her. It is an amazing thing. And for me, I've gone away, got another career, but I've come back because my heart and soul is so involved with this event, because it's you can't compare it to anything else. It is just the people that come out of the woodwork. It's like little ants that come out of everywhere, and you're not sure who's part of the apex or who's part of the lions, but they just come out. And like Chloe will tell you as well, when she comes to committee meetings, everyone just comes together. And yeah, the whole of Wagin doesn't actually go to the Woolorama because they're all doing things. It's everyone else that just comes from everyone to experience it.
I think probably the other point to bring up at this point in time is that as we drafted and as a group, then we started looking at what we could do to make Woolorama bigger and better, and we looked at things like Miss Woolorama, which then went on to become the Rural Ambassador, and recognising we needed to involve younger people, and that was the structure we put in place to involve younger people. We needed to involve politicians, so we got people like Charlie Court to open the Woolorama, and we got the Minister for Agriculture to open Woolorama, the Federal Minister for Agriculture opened Woolorama. What we looked at was, when we drafted those people in, was people that we felt would be able to give Woolorama a boost that would help the process. So the young people, the politicians were all a big part of that process. So.
And Carmen was, near on emotional there when you talked about your love for Woolorama. I mean, what you talk about moving it from spring to autumn or getting engagement from the local community. I mean, are there any other special seeds there that were sown that this event has now precipitated from? Like, how has it got that intrinsic strength that it's prospered for 50 years?
It's created community spirit, really. I mean, a couple of examples. We when we first started, we were desperate for just display space, exhibition buildings. We had nothing. We had the old basketball court was it, and an old building was called the Luncheon Pavilion that was probably would have been condemned by most councils, even then. It was pretty ordinary. But Eric Farrow identified Tom the Cheap Grocer was going broke around Western Australia at the time, and he had a building in Albany that was a demountable building. I can't remember the size now, it's still there. But we went down and we needed some money, so actually Dick Old, the Minister for Agriculture at the time, was the person that was giving out some funding for communities. So we rang his office up and said, can we have a meeting with Mr Old? And the response was something like, no, he's too busy. He's on his way to Albany tomorrow. And we said, good, he'll go through Wagin. So as he goes past, we'll say hello, which we did. So Malcolm and I and a couple of others nailed him in the street outside what was Dalgiddy's in those days and talked about, we need 20 grand. And he gave us the 20 grand. So we actually went down and bought that building for 20 grand at an auction. Right? But then we went down as a team and demolished it ourselves. We were sending 8 to 10 truckloads of building back to Wagin every day for 2.5, 3 weeks, and all voluntary. The president's son actually found his load was shifting on the way home, so he stopped at a farmer's fence and stole 500 metres of wire and left 20 cents on the fence post to pay for it. But the fact of the matter is, it was community spirit that got right behind it. Everybody was in agreement. We needed to do it.
So what about the first building? You said it's still there?
The Tom's building is still there.
People will be able to see it when they go to this year's Woolorama? What will be inside? I'm putting you on the spot.
They sort of get used for all different things, and you don't actually realise what's going on because there's so much stuff going on. But what I was going to bring up is from a different point of view, growing up in school and stuff, it was you put your colouring in competition into to win 20 cents for first prize back then, or you make your cupcakes, or you build a Lego thing, or so for the kids and stuff, and bringing in even the ag schools. All the ag schools really get involved because they use it for their judging and everything else, and then that goes on and feeds into things like the Royal Show. It's funny how people sort of in Wagin go, well, I don't actually go to the show because I'm working at the show. So we go from probably 2,000 people in Wagin to over the 2 days, 23,000. Like, it's just... And it's crazy. And I say to things like sponsors, like, have you booked your accommodation yet? They're like, oh, no, we'll get around to it. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No. You need to book it 12 months in advance. And I guess that's the other really good thing, which was a heartbreak for us with the cancellation last year. And something that you don't realise until it's taken away is the spiderweb effect of what happens in Wagin. It books out the Dumbleyung pub. It books out the Woodnilling Tavern. It's all those little businesses that rely...
It's annual income for a lot of groups, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's the fee that we give, like the cricket club or the SES club that do the security. Like, that money was taken away from them, and it's sort of like that's what we were trying to get across when COVID happened. Like, just to make it clear to all your listeners and viewers, is we didn't have a choice. We fought so hard. We were on our laptop listening to the Premier make his announcement, and we agree that the health of the state is the most important thing. But when he said event can only have 500 people, we went into panic mode. We started ringing politicians. We started contacting who we could. It's like, can we get an exemption for the Woolorama? We're outside. We went through COVID in 2021 with a plan. What can we do? Because we were only, I think don't quote me, but 8 days out.
Yeah, it was only a couple of weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so we had trucks coming down to start building things, marquees, everything was literally happening. And we were just, what can we do? And we delayed announcing that we were actually going to close because we were like, we can do this. We can contact someone who's going to say, you can do it. And that's when we started getting phone calls. So like, the local servo, no one thought about that. They get in a heap of extra fuel. Or it's everyone that's ordered in extra food for all the cafes and everything else. And people were at a loss. And then we had people saying, well, can we just run the cattle thing? Because we've bred these amazing animals. They're all in top condition. And it was like, well, if we just let the cattle happen, it's then like the merinos are like, well, we want to run our competition. And before you know it, we haven't got 500 people. We're back to 20,000 people. And it was just devastating, like just absolute heartbreak for everyone. And I imagine
also, once you have something that's been going for 50 years, you lose momentum. It doesn't just pop back into place immediately, right? Or does it? Have I got that wrong?
It was really surreal because I think it was so close, and it was just like, no, we can get through this. Because 2020, when COVID did come into Australia, we were so lucky in March to have our event. Then I think it was the Grand Prix in Melbourne, someone brought COVID in, and then it was like events can have 1,000 people. 2 days later it was 500. 2 days later it was 10 people. Then you can't have a funeral, and that's how quick it went. But in 2021, we wrote our COVID plan. We went through all the government regulation, and we held a Woolorama. We were back to 20,000, which is still amazing. 20,000 people came out with masks on, participated, everything else. So we were like, 2022, we've got this in the bag. We've done it before, no worries. And then, we just were like, this can't happen. We've got away with it when so many other poor shows had been cancelled. So to answer your question, it was a grieving thing. And even though I was trying to say, right, we've still got people, let's do something on Woolorama weekend, let's clean up, let's come together. I think everyone was just so exhausted from trying so hard that the wind did come out of the sails a little bit. Yeah, it was very, very unique situation.
Look, you can see how proud I am of the structure that our team put together to make this happen still now.
And that's really what I was asking about. Like there's some intrinsic strength there that helps something last for 50 years. Now we've got two clearly passionate individuals talking about Woolorama. Chloe, do you dare be as passionate and as enthusiastic? I don't know if you can top them, but have a go. How much do you love Woolorama?
Yeah, so I've probably got a different perspective or view from Carmen and Rick. I'm from Highbury, which is just sort of between Narrogin and Wagin, and my parents are sheep and grain farmers. So we have a sheep stud. So if I wasn't riding horses in the Woolorama, I was in the ram ring with our sheep. So that was probably my starting points of Woolorama. I have lots of memories as a kid, running around, wiping sheep's mouths, cleaning them up. My brother was so passionate and he's done really well with his stud. And then as I got older, obviously that's, I think, the key thing with Woolorama, and I talk about it now, is there is something for everyone there. Like, it's not just animals, it's not just show bags for the kids, there is or rides. There's so many different aspects, and being sort of a viewer, so I am not involved in the community, but I try and help out wherever possible. But just listening in on the conversations and the meetings they hold, everyone is putting in their efforts. Like, there's every single person has one part they put or one piece of the puzzle they slot in. And over the last few months that I've been involved, it's crazy to see how it's progressed and how it's sort of coming together. And having the last meeting that I'll be involved in before the Woolorama just this week, it was crazy. So as Carmen said, just for a small country town to be able to find the volunteers, and it's not like there's sort of a lack for volunteers, but there's still, I wouldn't know any events in the area that would be able to pull that many people for 2 days. And the fact that they run over 2 days and they're 2 huge days, it just shows how much involvement the community wants to have. And that's the wider area. Like, people come from Perth and surrounds now, and the problem is now is accommodation because there's not much available. But it's amazing, and that's why. And I think you were right. It was not far out last year that they canned it because.
It was about 8 days. I feel.
it was a bit, and with timing again, having it in March. A lot of families, because it's more an agricultural sort of area. A lot of families will go away in January. Then they get the kids settled back in school in February. March is the perfect time. Kids have been back to school for a month or 5 weeks. They're probably getting a bit annoyed with being back at school. And it's like, oh, well, Woolorama's here. You can have your little show and show bags, and you can meet up with your friends, and you go on rides, and, you can put stuff in. I know I used to enter stuff, cooking, and you would cook 50 million cakes to try and get the best one. And
I always love the pikelets. You see some really odd-shaped pikelets, but they're there on the plate and they just look gorgeous.
And that's it. And it gives you a bit of purpose and something to look forward to. And, we've had last year was probably not the best year because there was fires and there was other devastations in that time as well. So it was a real letdown to the community not to go forward. But yeah, I'm really keen. I'm a bit nervous.
And what about this rural ambassador? What does that mean?
I applied, so you have to apply for it, and multiple people sort of enter, and they held it, I think it was in October last year that we held so the 3 of the applicants, we all went in, and you sort of, you apply for it, and I suppose it's looking at, it gives you community experience. It's bringing your younger perspective, I suppose, because it's under 25, I think, so the applicants, and then from that, so if you're successful, which I'm very grateful I was, you then get involved. So I've done a few different things. We had a media day. And so in September then I will go to the Royal Show and compete for the state one as well. And then that will go to Sydney. Whoever's successful will compete in the Australian one in Sydney. So yeah, it's an amazing opportunity. And it's sort of targeted. So we all sort of had to pick a topic we're passionate about to speak about. So everyone had sort of a different area they wanted to speak in. Mine was in rural education and opportunities in rural areas. So it was talking about sort of my education, how I got different qualifications without having to leave the rural community, and also sports and the impact they have on young people and, just communities, because we don't have the cinemas to go and socialise at or distract us on weekends. So generally you're involved in some sort of sport or committee to keep you busy.
Rick, what's your involvement in Woolorama today?
Well, no real direct involvement anymore. I mean, I left Wagin in 1987 or thereabouts. But passionately, I've been back and forwards a number of times. I've just really enjoy the fact that it's still growing and still going strong. I mean, the structures we put in place, as I said, is really fantastic. But I mean, some of the things that I'm thinking back on, that things like you were talking about the ram shed. When we first started, typical country shows, sheep judging was done in the aisle between the pens. Right? The public were excluded, right? Completely excluded. Now, Malcolm and I actually went to a sheep sale show in Dubbo in New South Wales, where they had tiered seating, and a spruiker talking about what the judges were doing. That's a good idea. Yeah. Let's bring that back to Wagin. So we developed that selling ring, the display ring, the grassed area. It was only a bit of lawn in Wagin that got looked after. It was really only a bit of lawn.
It's still the best green lawn.
It's the best green lawn.
That merino lawn, I don't know what goes on it, but it's
there's
still the greenest lawn.
There's a lot of manure goes on there. But turning it in from a non-public event to a public event makes a huge difference.
And so, Chloe, I'm intrigued because you told us before around getting sheep and rams ready to show in this ring. I assume, but on the day, what's the experience? Yeah.
So you would trim their feet, so make sure, because obviously they overgrow. If their wool has fluff, or you sort of trim, wipe their faces, because obviously if they eat, they get dirt, and you just make sure they're in good condition. Depends, like there's different classes. Sometimes they're blade shorn, which is like a pair of scissors, and then or they're full wools, depending on the class is, and it's hectic because you also don't have any hold up, like you hold their face. There's no rope on them when you take them out to hold them for a class.
You hold them by the jowl.
Yeah, and you just hope they don't want to get rid of you that day.
Because they're stronger than you are.
Yeah, 100%. Some of them are 100+ kilos. Like they're not small animals.
Looking forward then to seeing you wrestling a ram in the ring at the Woolorama this year.
I've retired from that.
What else can we expect? What else is happening?
So yes, we didn't get to do our 50th, so going bigger and better this year. So lots of great stuff for kids to do. One of the big highlights always at the show is the Axemen Society. So everyone, doesn't matter where you're from, Perth, anything else, it's fascinating to watch a guy chop a log of wood. They're coming for 2 days this year, so usually they just come on a Saturday, so that's really cool. We've got taste buds cooking demonstration. So a lady from My Kitchen Rules is coming down doing cooking and using local Wagin duck, so that's really exciting. Heaps of stuff for the kids. We've got the WA Rodeo Queen coming this year. So one of the things that only happened, I think, about 10 years ago, we introduced the rodeo on a Saturday night. So something always really, really cool. Something very cool is we have done a deal with Eagle Bay Brewing because they've used Clayton South's wheat, so he's a local farmer. And we've got Wheat Belt Lager, and we've done a special run with the Woolorama logo on it. So we've got something for the adults, we've got something for the kids.
These will be available at the Woolorama?
So the adults can go...
Love a plug here on the CSBP Grow Better podcast.
The adults can go to the wine bar and the new Mouton bar, and I've been told Mouton is French for sheep. So the adults can go and chill, then they've got a magician that's going to probably make the kids disappear so the adults can drink some more. And going back to that, it's a great place for the farmers to catch up. That's the other big thing, I guess. Like we were saying, the farmers work so hard, as we all know, and everything that goes into a 12 months. The Woolorama is a chance where they go and relax in the stockman's bar, and it's like they might have passed each other in trucks and talked on the two-way and stuff, but it's like, right, we've put our animals in, we've done those competitions and everything, now we're just going to have a drink in the stockman's bar, or we're going to go up to the rodeo and stuff like that. But yeah, it's going to be, we've got also merchandise. Just
oh my God!
Just like,
for those who are watching on.
Just like the Olympics, we haven't changed the year. The Olympics didn't change their year, so we're like, well, we're going to keep our merchandise. But yeah, there will be memorabilia. It'll just be bringing everyone together and having a great time, really.
Well, it's certainly a lot to look forward to, and we at CSBP will certainly be there joining you at Woolorama this year.
I think you're site 67.
Very good. Another plug. God, we've really gone out
on the oval there, yeah.
We've gone out on a limb today, and it's been great chatting to you all about Woolorama. I think that is it from us today at the CSBP Grow Better podcast. So Rick McDonald, Chloe Blight, and Carmen Keed, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you all out there in podcast world. I've been Gray Johnston. Make sure you follow us at CSBP Fertilisers on all your social platforms to stay in touch with what's happening. We'll see you at the Woolorama. Goodbye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the CSBP Grow Better podcast. For more information about CSBP, please visit csbp-fertilisers.com.au or connect with us on social media at CSBP Fertilisers on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn.